ॐ यो देव सवितास्माकं धियो धर्मादिगोचराः प्रेरयेत्तस्य यद्भर्गः तद्वरेण्यम् उपास्महे। ब्रह्मानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिं द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वधी साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि। श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम्। शन्नो मित्रश्चं वरुणः शन्नो भवत्पर्यमा शन्न इन्द्रो बृहस्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुरुक्रमः नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायु त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वामेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। We continue the Vivek Chudamani. Stina, help with the number of those.
341. Yes. What's the last one?
341. I got it right. The verse number 341, it continues from the previous verse, which is talking about the only means for liberation from all kinds of bondage is to realize oneself as everything. The knowledge of oneself as the totality is the only means for real liberation, complete freedom from bondage. This is what we saw in the last class with a lot of jokes and also quoting about the front seat in Vaikunta and all that, if you remember. And also quoting Taittiriya Upanishad, which says, Jnanya Pantha Vidyate Anaya. Shruti also says, Veda also says, there is no way for this other than this. So there is no many paths leading to liberation. There is no path leading to liberation. Liberation is your nature if you understand what you are, and what you are happens to be the totality. Now, to get this knowledge, how to go about being stable in this knowledge? And then further exposition on the nature of this knowledge is going on. So the next verses, he is asking a question. How the non-apprehension of the perceptible world possible for the one who remains identified with the physical body? For a person who is identified with the physical body, how is it possible to stop creating this dualistic vision? How the mind will stop seeing this mithya world as real? How this non-apprehension of the perceptible world translation means? Actually, the Sanskrit word is drishyasya agrahanam katham nu gathate dehatmana tishthato. For the one who is established in the idea that I am the body, the one who is given to the self-definition of I am the body, of oneself based on the body, the perception of this world of objects will not end. Perception of this world of objects has to be understood as the sense of reality. See, wherever you see in the Shastra, wherever you see in any Advaita-based Shastra, coming to end of the perception, the world of perception. Ending of the world of perception means, don't think that you are looking at everything. Wherever you look, it is like one big powerful photo flash. You don't see anything. It's light everywhere. It's like in the matrix, in the middle of the matrix where there is only light everywhere. the basic matter. It is not like that. Cessation of the perceptible world means cessation of the sense of reality that is attributed to the perceptible world. That is what it means. There is no other meaning anywhere else. The only meaning means, because everywhere the Acharya cannot keep telling the reality that is associated with the perceptible world is not possible. So once you say that, cessation of the world of perception means Mithya Jnanam. That's all it means. Okay. And then, how this Mithya Jnanam will come to an end for a person who is defining oneself based on the body, plus there is one more. There are two things that are cause for bondage and samsara. One is self-definition from the body and the mind. Another is attachment to experience of specific objects, external objects. That is, feeding the patterns of desire where the buddhi is deluded to believe that the joy or the happiness or the fulfillment is coming from objects. No matter how holy or how dear or how justified and how legal the object is, if you think that your happiness and fulfillment comes from any object, any objectifiable phenomena, that is attachment to external objects. Okay? So these two things, one who remains identified with the physical body and whose mind is attached to the enjoyment of external objects and who does various actions for that. So when your mind is attached for objects, obviously you are caught in the effort of trying to acquire them, preserve them, and you are afraid of losing them. So this is going to be there all the time. So for a person who is busy in this samsaric activity, whose intention for activity, we put like this. What is samsaric activity? The intention for action coming from the desire to acquire, preserve and prevent losing an object. If this is my reason for activity, which means this reason is coming from my attachment to the experience derived from those objects, which is based on my identification with the body-mind. Self-definition based on the body-mind, which is ignorance, avidya asmita, creates raga dvesha, likes and dislikes, which creates abhinivesha, clinging to situations, patterns and objects, which keeps the samsara wheel going. This should be carefully practiced by the seers of truth, desirers of the eternity, who have renounced all kinds of duties, actions and sense objects and who are ever established in the eternal self. So this should be carefully practiced means this discretion that as long as I am attached to objects without examining the root of the desire which is centered in my habitual self-definition based on the body-mind, as long as this is going, samsara will not come to an end, which means let me not encourage the patterns which make me identify with the body, which reinforce my identification with the body and which make me run behind objects. And let me not keep myself busy, because here it is talking about sannyasi. So the karma yogi has to say, let me always examine my motive. Sannyasi means physical renunciation. Karma yogi means cognitive reconstruction. Constant cognitive reconstruction. Because either there are two ways of a karma yogi. A karma yogi can be a person who is purifying the mind for knowledge. Or a karma yogi is a person who has knowledge but is using the context of active life also to be established in the knowledge. Right? Because the prarabdha does not allow renunciation, this person uses the active life context to be established in knowledge. For karma yogi, the investigation is constantly with respect to the motive. For a sannyasi, the discipline is external and internal. For the karma yogi, the discipline is external to the extent of restricting the activities to swadharma alone. Swadharme nidanam shreyaha. The one who is desirous of the long-term welfare, if the person is living a life which is very actively involved in activities, the person is committed to some kind of dharma, it's a karma yogi. Karma yogi is a person who is committed to dharma. Sannyasi is a person who is committed to knowledge. Dharma equal to karma. Dharma means action. Okay? Knowledge means renunciation. Now, the karma yogi, how the person will apply the same thing? Those sannyasis who has renounced all kinds of obligations, actions, sense objects, and who are ever established in the self. But karma yogi has renounced all desire for result. The karma yogi has renounced, all sense of personal interest in a result, and has renounced ownership over the sense of doership, does not look for credit, recognition, and does not poke his nose on anything that is not his dharma. Like this, there is a restriction in the activity. For a karma yogi, it is restricted activity. For a sannyasi, no activity other than barest survival and what is required for study. This is the interpretation. Sannyastha akhila dharma karma vishayehi. That is for sannyasi. So I am interpreting it for karma yogi. Sarvatma siddhaye bhikshoho krita shravana karmanah samadhim vidadhyatyesha samadhim vidadhatyesha shanto danta iti shruti. There is a verse from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which comes in Shukla Yajurveda. Shrutehe means Shruti Veda. There is, according to the verse Shanto Danto, which is coming in the Shruti, it must be a very famous verse in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which says those ascetics who are committed to Shama, Dhamma, Uparama, Tiksha, Samadhana, Shraddha, what we talk as the sixfold asset. So that is also discussed in the Upanishad. It is not simply Tattva Bodha. What we read in Tattva Bodha, etc., is being derived from the Shruti. So all these scriptures are written in keeping with the Shruti. So Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says those people who are devoted to the cultivation of the sixfold inner wealth must be devoted to Samadhi. That is what he is saying here. Sarvatma siddhaye bhikshoho, for the purpose of perfection in the knowledge that I am everything, for the purpose of perfection of the knowledge of oneself as the totality, bhikshoho, those who live on bhiksha, the sannyasis, which means also karma yogi, that means those who live on prasada buddhi. So bhiksha means the one who is surviving on alms. For a karma yogi, the one who has surrendered to the Lord and who lives moment to moment with an attitude that whatever I face is a gift from the Lord, which means karma yogi. So bhiksha here means prasada buddhi for a karma yogi. Okay? Bhikshoho to the sannyasi, krita shravana karmanaha, whose job is listening and krita shravana karmanaha means who is doing the job of listening. What is the job of sannyasi? Eat and listen to Vedanta. This is the only job. This is what they do. If you go to Rishikesh, there are a lot of people going with this kind of, you have seen it, this, they carry one kind of a box, one cylinder kind of thing, like a different box, they carry and walk around. There will be a sannyasi, they will be carrying one bhiksha, or they will carry one coconut shell. It's like it looks like a skull, like that. It's called bhiksha patra. That is there, it will be there. If you see Buddhist monk, they will have one bowl in their bag, bowl and a robe, one bag will be there. So they will be going around from ashram to ashram listening to discourses. When you are hungry, some ashram kali gamli wala, somebody will give you food, eat, and sleep under the tree when you are sleeping. Other than that, you listen to discourse and do your practice. Go by the Ganga side, walk, sit and meditate. Then nothing else. Day after day, year after year, till the body falls, they do only this. This is called sannyasa. Sannyasa means best minimum survival, rest of the time devoted to contemplation. Suppose if you are an accomplished master, you are traveling. You don't need to listen to discourses. So you just keep traveling, mind rooted in the self. When the time for Chaturmasya, the 4 months of rainy season, when that time comes, wherever you are, you will stop in that village and stay in that place for 4 months. And during that period, the different discourses and study of the Shastra and all those things will happen. All the people nearby will come There will be some Shastra Vichara, all the discussion on Shastras will happen in that. Other than that, nothing. Person is on the move. Every day eat by Diksha, contemplate. Nothing else. So, Shuddha Krita Shravana Karmanaha, those who do the job of listening to discourses, etc., those people, for them, what is prescribed is the practice of samadhi, the practice of concentration, the practice of one-pointedness of the mind. Let those people who are devoted to the listening and the sannyasis who have renounced for the purpose of perfection. This is very important. Samadhi is not Vedanta. Samadhi is yoga. For the purpose of perfection in the knowledge that I am the totality, let them develop the habit of practicing and repeatedly practicing samadhi of the mind. That is what I said. It is recommended. It is recommended by the Shruti. So now, from now on in the next two verses, the Acharya is going to say how interconnected is yoga and Vedanta. How important it is to practice one-pointedness of mind. How important it is to practice Nirvikalpa Samadhi in order for the knowledge to really take root in the system. No matter how much philosophy, how much you do, if the mind is not capable of being absolutely still, the knowledge will not take root. Only the habit patterns will be asserting themselves again and again. That is what is going to be discussed now. Right? Next. Shruti prescribes samadhi for perfection of the... See, the translation here is wrong. You know what it says? Shruti prescribes samadhi for realizing that all is the self. That is wrong translation. Vidadatyesha vidadati means prescribed. Eshaha, this, according to this statement of this Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. What is this? Sarvatma Siddhaye. Siddhaye means perfection. For perfection in the Sarvatma Drishti. Perfection in the vision that I am the totality. Means let this vision not be clouded by any other contradictory thought. In Yoga Shastra, it is called as Param Prasankhyana. The word. 4th chapter of Yoga Sutra talks about as Prasankhyana. You just Google Prasankhyana, you will see a lot of things. They will say highest intellection, this and that. These are all different funny translations. The problem is when it comes to English. Prasankhyana means, in the Western old terminology, there is a word called gnosis. Gnosis. That is Prasankhyana. It is not illusion. It is Shastra Janita Jnana. It is the knowledge about oneself that is a result of inquiry in line with the Shastra, in line with the teaching. Okay, next. Arudha Shakte Rahamo Vinasha Karturna Shakya Sahasapi Panditaihi Ye Nirvikalpakhya Samadhi Nischalaha Tanantaranta Bhavahi Vasanaha. Arudha Shaktehe Ahamaha. The habit of I and mine that has taken a very deep root in the chitta, in the mind. The I and mine habit that has taken a firm root to be destroyed is not possible. It is not possible to destroy this pattern of I and mine which is very deeply rooted in the system. Even for the great scholars, you might remember the entire Brahma Sutra by heart. You might know all the Shankaracharya commentary by heart. You might know all the 10 Upanishads and along with the commentary. You may chant the entire Bhagavad Gita. You may get gold medal in Bhagavad Gita chanting competition. All this is useless. It will not help you to remove your I and mind which is deeply rooted. Nirvikalpa Samadhi Nischala. It is not possible. No, it is not. They will not have this power to remove this I and mind unless through Tanantara, except then those who are devoted to the practice of Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Along with the knowledge, let the person convert the knowledge into the resolve for making the mind absolutely still. Unless your mind can be absolutely still, the knowledge is not going to work. Only your habit patterns will keep asserting again and again. So it is not, even the wise people find it impossible to destroy the habit pattern of the ego, I and mind habit, ahankara, once it has become strong, except by those who have become perfectly calm through the repeated practice of Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Why? Because the desires, the vasanas are a result of innumerable births. So one pattern, if you have in the mind, that pattern is not just 1 year, 2 year or even 12 year, 20 year conditioning. It is millions of life conditioning. Hungry, eat. No? It's a conditioning for millions of lives. Right? That is why a child that knows nothing knows to cry for food at least. That they are vasana. Then in his mind alone, suddenly you feel that sense of security. I need to hang on to something. These are all very, very basic urges, which project themselves in all the patterns. This I should save the world. It is nothing but my own insecurity projected into the society. I think the society has a problem. So there are a bunch of tribals living very happily in a forest. I go from here to save them. I destroy their culture, I destroy their folk ways, ethos, modes, everything. Then I inject a problem. I studied social work, masters of social work. They will say, injecting a conflict in a society in order to bring development. A society is very, they are okay, but they are not developed. They are very undeveloped because they are too peaceful. They are very undeveloped. They should get sophisticated and get worked up like people in the Wall Street. So I am supposed to go and inject a problem or inject a need, and then from there churn the people to develop. This is one of the principles of social work. So what happens in this kind of thing is nothing but a glorified packaging of my own insecurity. I cannot keep quiet, so I cannot tolerate anybody keeping quiet. So this kind of problems will come. So all these different, then the more and more we complicate a basic tendency that is fundamentally rooted in I and mind, and more and more we complicate, we find it much more difficult to access the root problem. So here we are talking about this root problem. This root problem behind all our patterns are nothing but the vasana, the very basic vasanas which are inherited from past lives. From thousands and thousands of past lives, this vasana is there. And this vasana gets embedded into many patterns. So you may say, you mean to say that in the last life I was doing this, in the last life I was doing that? It's not like that specific. Vasanas coming from past life means these basic undefined tendencies. You suddenly find, I don't know, I very strongly feel like I should do this. I very strongly feel like I need this. We say. So this I feel very strongly means it is a vasana. That's all, nothing more. Anything that you feel is vasana. Anything that you know is knowledge. Because they are from innumerable birth, simply by repeating words from the Upanishad, Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, I am Brahman, I am Brahman, I am Brahman, will not work. The meaning of I am Brahman has to be translated to Vairagya, which means the ability to keep the mind absolutely still, which is Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Aham buddhyaiva mohinya yojayitva आवृतेर्बलात् विक्षेप शक्ति पुरुषं विक्षेपयति तद्गुणैः अहं बुद्ध्या एव मोहिन्या योजयित्वा. Okay. Deluding the person regarding this tendency of defining oneself as a limited individual. Aham buddhya means the definition of oneself as an individual based on the body and mind. The intellect that defines you, the intellect that creates these ideas of I and mind. This delusion of the intellect is created by the two powers of Maya, which is Avarana and Vikshepa. The Avarana covers the knowledge and Vikshepa projects it into different dimensions. So the projecting power, which is Vikshepa, through the aid of the veiling power, which is Avarana, confuses a person with many egoistic ideas, many ideas based on the ego, and distracts the person through the attributes of that agitation. It's a very bad translation. Let me go to this. So, very important. Ahankara, which has been strong, cannot be affected quickly by the learned except by those who are firm and moving in the Vikalpa Samadhi, because vasanas are long rooted and variously produced. This is the last verse. The current verse is aided by the concealing power, that is the power of covering up, which is Avarana. The projecting power connects an individual with the sense of Ahankara and distracts that person by the qualities of that Ahankara. Purusham vikshepayati tad gunaihi. Vikshepayati. Mohinya, even about the fall from one's real nature. Aham buddhaya yojita, connecting with the sense of the ego. The Purusha, Panditamapi, even the learned person. Tad bala, that is sankalpa, leads in many ways off from the true nature of the self. See, there are two powers in Maya. So you find yourself suddenly thinking based on I and mind. Okay, you listen to all Vedanta. It's all going in the mind. You're okay, I am Brahman. I am not the body. I am not the mind. You are thinking like that, and you do experience some kind of detachment, some kind of high-mindedness, and then suddenly you find yourself completely sucked into a egoistic desire pattern or something where you are not able to think anything else. You are not able to extract yourself from that circuit of I and mind. You find yourself forcibly drawn into something, into a pattern. How do you find that? Because there are two powers in Maya. Maya is nothing but the power that is able to project variety in consciousness. There are two powers in Maya, which is Maya is a certain inherent power in consciousness, which is also a certain version of Maya helps you to project the dream. The power by which the mind is able to project a dream is indicative. It shows the nature of Maya. Okay? It covers up the knowledge of who you are and then projects it into different kinds of patterns. That is why you are able to find yourself as a very different person in the dream than when you are in the waking state. You say, no, I cannot even think about myself like that, but in the dream, I saw myself like that. You say, no, I saw that person like that. So how? It is because the real knowledge is covered up. That is why when you wake up, it is a dream. You say, no, because the real knowledge is covered up. So the ability in consciousness, there is the inherent power in consciousness which is able to cover up knowledge. This is avidya. It's called avarana shakti. The power of forgetfulness. The power of covering of knowledge. That is making the knowledge not available. And the power of projecting variety. Now, the knowledge of the self is covered in the buddhi, and you are attached to this buddhi is attached to the pattern of I and mind, and this buddhi attached to the pattern of I and mind, that is the buddhi plus I and mind pattern, gets projected into different patterns. Tad gunaihi. Into different thought patterns and into different directions of distraction where you carry this I and mind. Why? When you experience something, for example, let us say I just wash my feet, hands, mouth and everything, and then I come, I feel very pure. Suddenly I find my feet on some trash. Then what happens? Now, immediately there is a reaction. There can be an objective reaction or there can be a very subjective reaction. I will assume that I have a subjective reaction, or when I have a subjective reaction, it is because See, my I and mine is there. The moment a sense impulse comes, the mind responds to it based mechanically in a certain way, and this I and mine gets embedded into this thought pattern. This ego sense of what I think I am gets embedded into a stimulus. What happens? That stimulus response pattern gets a significance for you. It becomes important or not important, positive or negative. How something becomes positive or negative with respect to your sense of self. That is when the aham buddhi, the buddhi with the idea of I am. The buddhi carrying the idea of I am this, I am that. Whatever it is. Relates to a certain information from the mind. And you get distracted with respect to that information. That means you see yourself in relation to that information or in relation to that experience. Then what happens? You become either attached to the experience or you become averse to the experience. Averse means dislike. You become a liking person or you become a disliking person. Based on the intellect empowered with the idea of I and mine, which is the result of the veiling power. I forget who I am. Then I get the idea of I and mine through the identification. Then the projecting power brings me a lot of information and stimuli, and then I get distracted in 100 directions. This is what happens. Okay. So he's just explaining that mechanism. The one who invests the one who invests the anatma with the idea of atma, then one's real nature gets concealed. That means I project my sense of self on what I am not. A mithya is taken as mithya anatma means apparent reality, an apparent phenomena which does not have its own inherent reality, is taken as I, who I am, the Satya. That which is self-existent, that which is giving existence to everything else, that which is not dependent on anything else for its existence is Satyam. That which is unchanging in the 3 periods of time is Satyam. This me, who I am Satyam, I take myself to be of the nature of Nitya. I am happy. Yesterday I was sad. The mind was sad. The mind is happy. I am neither sad nor happy. I am the awareness who is watching the presence or absence of happiness or sadness in the mind. Happiness is, see, if I am Satya, Shruti tells that I am Satya. If I am Satya, if I am the absolute unchanging reality, if I am the absolute unchanging reality, how I will feel something yesterday and something else today? The very fact that I feel something today about myself and I feel something else yesterday about myself and I will feel something else tomorrow about myself means I am identified with Mithya. That means I am investing my sense of self on a Mithya. Like how I develop the sense of being part of a football team in a match. I watch a football match, my sense of self gets projected into the TV to the team. And I run with Maradona, I stop with Maradona, I break my leg with Maradona, then I cry with Maradona, then I jump with Maradona. When the match is over, I am back to Yogeshwar. This is called investing your sense of self on this and that. This is all very easy to understand. The same darn process in your mind with respect to the body and mind, with your identity. You think you are so and so. Who are you? You will have a lot of things to tell. Right? Are you this? He says no. Nisargadatta Maharaj used to say, there was a great jnani in India, in Mumbai. He used to say, first his teaching is, you have come to believe that you are something. You think your name is so and so. People tell you that you are born. Don't believe all that. All this is wrong. You are not what you think you are. That's where he will start the teaching. You are not what you think you are. You are something else. Stay with that I am. for long enough and don't lose touch with that, and you will see that all you think about yourself is false. You will instigate that viveka. Then you will say you are that and you are beyond everything, you are Brahman, all that talk will come. That there it will be a little unsystematic because he is not a Shastragyan. He doesn't talk based on Shastra. He talks based on his experience and what he learned from his guru and his own commitment to the knowledge. So he talks from there. He's a Brahmanishta. But he will start like this. Don't believe all that is told to you about you as true. You are not what you think you are. That's where he will start. It's very nice. It's a discrimination. Awaken the Viveka. That's what he's saying. See, that's how this sense of self, the self, one invests the sense of self on something that is not the self. Here, I told you, self and not self. Wherever it comes in the scripture, translate it into Satya and Mithya. Okay? So, otherwise you will end up in the confusion. When everything is the self, how can there be a not self? This confusion will come. Right? Sarvam Hedat Brahma, I am Atma Brahma, all this is Brahman, I am that Brahman, which means what? I am everything. When I am everything, why I cannot think of this as me? Why I cannot think of this as me? I am this also and I am that also. No. I am never this. I am never that. I am only this. It is like telling the water is the wave also, the ocean also, and water also. You talk to the water, it will say, no, I am water. I am never the wave, I am never the ocean. I superimpose the idea of wave on water, the ocean on water. Water is only water. Wave is water, ocean is water. Water is not wave, water is not ocean. Pot is clay, clay is not pot. Mithya is Satya, but Satya is not Mithya. So, whenever you see self and not self, simply mechanically translate it into self equal to Satya and not self equal to Mithya. When you do like this, the thinking will be very easy. Otherwise, it will not be possible to understand. Then you will be thinking, oh, I should take myself from what is not me. No. It means it is the idea about me. Taking a Mithya to be me is investing in not self. Means investing in the idea about oneself which is not the nature of oneself. Investing the sense of self on a limited phenomena. Okay. Considering a limited phenomena to be oneself means taking not self to be the self. That's what it means. What is complete is never incomplete. What is incomplete is never complete. Okay? The converse is not good actually. What is complete is never incomplete. What appears to be incomplete is the completeness only. Whatever is incomplete is an appearance in the completeness. It is the completeness which appears as incomplete. Purnamadaha, Purnamidam, all that is here is Purnam. All that is here is completeness. Completeness is that. Completeness is this. This completeness came from that completeness. So whatever is Mithya is Satya. Every pot is clay. Clay is never pot. It's a very simple thing. Atma equal to clay. Anatma equal to pot. Okay? Just put this equal. It will be very easy. So Atma means Satya. Anatma means Mithya. That's what it means here. Okay? So basically there is nothing other than you. When you understand there is nothing other than you, you will never consider yourself to be one thing. Okay? When there is nothing other than you, you cannot consider yourself as a thing. When you consider yourself as a thing, that means you are out of touch with what you are. That's what it means. You are everything, you are not a thing. Once real nature gets concealed, water covered by moss. Okay, it's all different in the commentary. Then the next one, 345. Vikshepa Shakti Vijayo Vishamo Vidhatum Nishesha Mavarana Shakti Nivrityabhave Drishyayoho स्फुटपयो जलवत् विभागे नश्येत् तद् आवरणम् आत्मनि च स्वभावात् निःसंशयेन भवति प्रतिबन्धशून्यो निक्षेपणं नहि तदा यदि चेन् मृषार्थे. Without the total removal of the avarana shakti, the concealing power, it is difficult to get over the projecting power, the vikshepa. See, if you have not secured the absence of the veiling, if the veiling power, as long as the veiling power is not removed, as long as you have not achieved the absence of the veiling power, it is not possible to overcome the mischief of the projecting power. There are two powers, the veiling power and projecting power. As long as your avidya is not dispelled, so long you cannot overcome distraction. Distraction is empowered, is sustained by ignorance. So as long as the ignorance is not cleared, distraction cannot be overcome. That means sitting and holding your nose and trying to get stillness of the mind by the power of control will not work. It will work for some time, but that kind of samadhi will not free you from bondage. So the habit pattern of the bondage will not be cleared because the potential, the seed is still there. What is the seed? The avarana shakti, the power of concealing the truth is there. That has to be destroyed first. Okay. So how do you remove this avarana shakti, this concealing power? This concealing power will get destroyed naturally only if the seer and the seen are distinguished clearly like milk and water. You can say, okay, milk and water, why it is said? Because there is a sputapayo jalavat vibhage means, see, there is an example given, like separating milk from water. I give you a glass of milk, I put some water. You are supposed to separate the milk from water. How can you do that? We had one probably an extinct species, because a lot of scriptures talk about it. It is seemingly impossible separation, it's all mixed up. But the special bird called Hamsa, there is a bird called Hamsa, which they say is a swan, it's a kind of a swan. It looks like a goose, but it's a swan. Okay, it was that Hamsa. It's supposed to have lived long back. All the scriptures are talking about it. Probably somebody talked about it and nobody saw it and they just keep repeating it. So this Hamsa bird, what does it do? You give a bowl full of milk mixed with water, it will drink only the milk and leave the water. That's what they say. Suddenly the water, no? Sorry?
It's nice.
Yeah, it's very useful in India because they mix milk and water and give you. Good to have that bird house. Okay. So when this Hamsa is also, who is this sannyasi, the one with discrimination of self-knowledge? It's called Paramahamsa. He is a great swan. That means he can separate the Atma from this world. It's mixed up with this world. Samsara is water, the ocean of samsara, and the milk is poured into the ocean of samsara. Then you extract this milk out of this samsara. So this person is called Paramahamsa. Paramahamsa means he's a great swan who separates, like how the swan separates milk from water, this person is able to separate the self from the world. So it's called Paramahamsa, who has a great discrimination. It is a kind of a simile. Okay? It's a poetic simile. For us now it is only poetic. Probably that Hamsa existed, and if it did, I don't know how much true it was, because scientifically speaking, I think the milk is 70% water or something. So that means it will take only the milk solids or what? It will take only that.
That's not milk.
Huh?
That's not milk.
Yeah, that's not milk. Exactly. If you take the milk, there will be water, because there cannot be milk without water. Because milk is a colloid. So you should not take it literally. It means the separating the apparently inseparable. It means understanding the quality of milk from quality of water. It's a qualitative cognitive separation. So it is a very suggestive word. You cannot have a physical separation, but it is a cognitive separation. Milk is milk, water is water. If the milk is mixed with water, I know it is mixed with water because the consistency is not as that of the milk. So there is some water here. I separate the milk from water means I understand the milk to be different from the nature of what is there in front of me, which is mixed up. Okay, that's all it means. So here is not the. So the swan is only a mythological. It is a cognitive simile. It is only a poetic comparison. It's a poetic creation. This bird. This is what I think, because scientifically, from the Anumana, the scientific pramana, milk is 70% water. So you cannot separate milk from milk itself has water. There is no milk without water. So it should not take it literally. Okay. So without the total removal of the concealing power, it is difficult to get over the projecting power. The concealing power will get destroyed naturally if the seer and the seen are distinguished clearly like milk and water. This conquest over the projecting power, see, the distinction between them is done by the beak, that is the mind of the Paramahamsa. So, the beak of the Hamsa that is separating milk from water is nothing but the mind of the Paramahamsa. It's a metaphor, okay? The mind of the Paramahamsa is given a metaphor of the beak of the bird Hamsa, and then the concealment will be destroyed of itself in the self without effort. There is nothing more to be done after the destruction of the avarana ensuing upon discrimination between the Atman and Anatman. So here, how the avarana is removed, here you should not understand Drisya Viveka. Okay? So what he says is Drisyayoho Vibhage. Separating the seer from the seen. There are two aspects in this. I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am not whatever. But then, what am I? Because in the next verse, it is talking about the knowledge of the seer coming from the Shruti, from listening to Vedanta, from the statements like Tattvamasi, etc. So, the Swarupa Avastha, that is experiencing oneself as the consciousness alone, which is not conditioned by the mind. Experiencing one's own true nature without the interference of the mind. This is an experience, it is possible. By the practice of yoga, it is possible. Now, the Drisyayoho Vibhage means very clearly understanding the difference, in nature between the self, which is Satya, and all the seen objects, which is Vidya. Seer and the seen, self and the not self, Satya and Vidya. Okay? And again, Nashyetad avaranam Atmanicha Swabhavat. This discrimination destroys the concealing power. Okay. Then, the conquest over the projecting power, the Vikshepa, which is creating multiplicity, will be surely effected without any obstacle if there is no resting of the mind in the false things. Nishanshayena bhavati. Without doubt, you will get the mastery over the distractions, the distracting power, provided if you don't rest the mind on the objects that are presented by distraction. Once you have clearly understood the nature of the self from the non-self, be committed to the knowledge of the self. And don't allow the mind to rest on the objects. Viksheping, the Vikshepa Shakti, the distracting tendency, might present objects out of habitual potency, out of the habitual inherent energy, habitual energy, the energy of habit, might make it project for some time. It will project. Like you switch off a ventilator, it runs for some time. So once you have discrimination, whenever the Vikshepa project, the power of Vikshepa, because of the power of habit, brings an object or brings a multiplicity, don't rest your mind on that. That means don't follow the suggestion and it will die out by itself. Because because the veiling power, the ignorance about the self is not there, Vikshepa Shakti cannot sustain itself. The distracting power cannot sustain itself. So definitely there will be a freedom from that. There will be the cessation of the distraction. See, there is nothing more to be done after the destruction of the concealing power, which the destruction which is the result of discrimination. There is nothing more to be done. If there is no resting of the mind in the Anatman, which is Mithya, the victory over the projecting power will arise without doubt, void of any obstruction, which means it is an automatic result. So what you need to do is give importance to clarity of knowledge about the self and take care of the lifestyle. So the practice of Samadhi and other things takes care of the Vikshepa, the vacillation habit of the mind. The power of the mind to run here and there, the inherent habitual energy in the mind to run to all kinds of things, it cannot prolong itself without the support of absence of self-knowledge. See, absence of self-knowledge itself has its power, like darkness. Absence of light has a power to make you imagine a ghost. There is no ghost, there is knowledge of the ghost, there is a vasana of the ghost because of all the ghost stories told to you. The moment I switch off the light and make a sound, immediately ghost comes in mind. How it comes? Because the knowledge of what is here is covered up. Darkness is nothing but absence of light. Similarly, there is absence of self-knowledge. The absence of self-knowledge creates a possibility for all kinds of distractions to arise. So once self-knowledge is there, all you need to do is don't push yourself and run behind the distractions. Don't click on these pop-up windows of Vikshepa Shakti. Vikshepa Shakti keeps popping up windows in your screen. Don't click on them, it will stop. That's what he says. And it is an effortless process. It is an effortless process. Once knowledge has arisen, stopping of the mind is effortless. Then the next one, perfect discrimination. Samyak vivekaha Sputabodha Janyaha. What is Viveka? It is born of clear teaching and knowledge. Sputabodha Janyaha. It is born of clear knowledge. Perfect discrimination is born of clear understanding, separating the nature of the seer from the seen. Vibhajya Dridrishya Padartha Tattvam. And then Vibhajya means separating the nature of the seer and the seen and showing you the reality of the nature of the showing you the nature of the reality. Padartha Tattvam means showing you the nature of how it is, nature of the reality. The real nature of the self and the not self, Satya and Mithya. It then cuts asunder the bond of delusion caused by Maya. Chinnati Maya Krita Mohabandham. It cuts. Now you see Kali, Chinnamasta, all these deities, the tantric deities, they all have one sword. And then there is a garland of heads hanging on. You see the picture of Kali, she has a sword in the hand dripping with blood. And then there is a lot of heads, cut heads. It's a garland of her. Which means the knowledge of self. It cuts the head is the ego. He has a strong head, we say no. Cut head means separation, the destruction of the avarana, destruction of the I and mind, destruction of the ego pattern by the sword of knowledge. Chinnati Maya Krita Moha Bandham. Maya Krita done Moha Bandham, the bondage, the delusive bondage, the deluding bondage, the bondage that is the cause of delusion, which is created by Maya. What is Maya? Concealing power, projecting power is Maya. Concealing power, the veiling power, plus projecting power equal to Maya. Maya is nothing but a power which is defined functionally. There is only a functional definition of Maya. Okay? Maya is something that covers up reality and projects up variety, which is not true. It creates illusion. Okay. Chinnati Maya Krita Moha Bandham. See, it does not destroy Maya. What it destroys? It destroys the bondage created by Maya based on Avarana and Vikshepa. Okay. Why I am using Avarana Vikshepa? Because I want these two words to be embedded in your understanding, in your memory. Avarana Vikshepa. Avarana means covering up, veiling up. Vikshepa means projecting difference. This is Maya. So this, the different attachments created by this is cut asunder. Yasmat vimuktasya punar samsudhi. From that arises liberation, vimukti. The freedom that arises as a result of the knowledge of the self as something of a distinct nature from all that is limited, from all the mithya. The separation of the nature of self from the nature of the not self. This knowledge, which is born of clear understanding based on Mahavakya. Putta Bodha, it's understanding which is free from doubt and is not incorrect. That means Putta Bodha Janya means the knowledge that is free from all kinds of vagueness and doubt. Very clear knowledge. For example, today I was watching a movie on Madhvacharya. Okay, there is a movie called on another Acharya, Shankaracharya. He is one Acharya whom we follow. There was another Acharya called Madhvacharya. He set out to prove that you are never Brahman, you are always Jiva. You have to keep serving the God for all the time. Shankara's knowledge is incomplete. So he wrote his own commentary for so many things. Whatever. So he gave one logic. He is a great Acharya. He has his own purpose. It's all God's game. Doesn't matter. I am not here to talk about him. But there is one point he said. See, Atma, the sun and the reflection of the sun in the water, both are sun. He says no. See, the mirror is there. You are in front of the mirror. The mirror is reflecting you. Are you and your reflection the same? The reflection is only reflection. I am the reality, right? Similarly, it is the God's Chaitanya. The power of consciousness is actually God. The God's light is reflected in this body mind. And this reflected light is what is us. But the real light is the Lord. That's what he says. Apparently true, very logical. Immediately my mind said, but if the light is conscious, it's consciousness, but the light is light is not of the mirror. The light is reflected in the mirror. The light is not of the mirror. So nothing of the light belongs to the mirror. Nothing of the mirror belongs to the light, and the light is light. Right? Suppose if it is conscious, I am in the sun, the I am in the Ishvara, and the I am in the consciousness which is operating in the mind which is reflecting the consciousness. The I am in the reflected consciousness, both is the same mind. How can it be two persons? The I am in this context and the I am that is coming in some other context, both is the same I am. I am the father. I am the son. Okay. I am a father in front of my child. I am the son in front of my father. Now, the I am that is operating in the son father context, the I am that is operating in the son context, is it both two different I am? The reflecting surface is different, but the I am that is reflected is the same. So, when it is a consciousness, when it comes to consciousness, it is not two different consciousness, it is the same consciousness. So, Satchayam Purushe Eshava Ditye Sa Ekaha, the self, the I am that is here in this individual, the I am that is there in the sun, they are the same. Sa evam vide, that person who knows this, etamayam annamayam atmanam upasangramati, this person understands the self which is in the body, this person understands the self which is in the prana, like that. He becomes one with Brahman. It comes in the Upanishad. So, I and the I of the sun, both are same. This is the Advaita Tatmasi, explains that only. It is, so when it comes, immediately my mind started, this is the logical mistake. Because I am reflected in the mirror, I cannot define myself based on the characteristics of the mirror. Because I don't belong to the mirror. Correct? Even though the reflection is there, what you understand is this only, not the image in the reflection. Immediately it clicks. This is an example of clarity. Suppose if the knowledge is not clear, immediately what will happen? That is true. I am a devotee. Instantly the mind will cover up the knowledge. So Sputabodha Janya means when the knowledge is free from any doubt, nothing can cover up, nothing can delude you or distract you from the truth of what you are. That means no amount of any argument can make you forget the real nature of what you are. No situation can make you forget the nature of what you are. The whole world can collapse, the sky can become the earth can become the sky. Still this knowledge will not shake. This is what it means, born of clear understanding, which is the result of Shravana Manana Nididhyasana, which is the result of listening, contemplating and clearing all the doubts, and making it a part of every experience. This will make it very clear discrimination of the nature of the self from the nature of what is not you. What is not you means what is not your nature. Sudabodhajanyah dishya padartha tattvam vibhajya mayartha moha bandham chinnati. The bondage born of the Maya's power is gone, and for the person from that arises, from this knowledge arises liberation. The sense of freedom, the sense of not being bound by anything, Jivan Mukti. Then what happens? Punarna Samshriti. Again the samsara is not created. There is no more samsara. Not only there is no more rebirth, there is no more sense of becoming while the body is alive. There is Jivan Mukti. Okay. Na punaravartate, na punaravartate, Chandogya Upanishad says, for that person there is no coming back again. This person will not come back. That means there will be no more samsara, there is no more birth and death. The meaning of the fourth, the last part of the Yasmad Vimuktasya Punarna Samsati, from that freedom there is no coming back. That is being explained in the next sloka. Paravarai Katva Viveka Vahnihi Dahatya Vidya Gahanam Hyashesham Kim Syat Punah Samsaranasya Bijam Kim Syat Punah Samsaranasya Bijam Kim Syat Punah Samsaranasya Bijam Advaita Bhavam Samupeyushosya Advaita Bhavam Samupeyushosya. Okay. The fire of knowledge of the oneness of the Brahman and the Jiva totally destroys the forest of avidya. To that person who has attained this sense of oneness, what will be there of the seed of samsara? Para avara ekatva viveka vahnihi means the para avara ekatva viveka vahnihi. Vahnihi means the fire. The fire, what is the fire? The knowledge that I and the Supreme are one. Brahmas Jivo Brahmaiva Napara. This me, this I, who I am experiencing as I in the context of individuality, this I am nothing but Brahman. The oneness of the Jiva and Brahman, the knowledge of the oneness of the Jiva and Brahman works like the fire. And what does this fire do? What does this fire do? It burns the entire forest that is created by the seed of avidya. And avidya itself is the forest, not the forest that is avidya. Avidya itself is the forest means what? Avidya is the seed which is grown into a forest by the power of vikshepa. Because the avidya is gone, the whole forest is a dream forest. So the sleep that is causing this dream, once you wake up, when you wake up from a dream, no matter how many things you see in the dream, the moment you wake up, dream doesn't switch off one by one, The moment you wake up, the whole dream is gone. Similarly, when the knowledge arises, the whole forest that is created by avidya, the avidya forest is gone. And the hati converts into ash. That is why we have, Shiva's body is full of ash. Lord Shiva is, wearing a lot of ash in the body. And what ash he is wearing? Smashana Bhasma. When the body is burnt in the cremation ground, that ash he takes and puts on his body. Shiva, that is the ornament for Shiva. He is wearing the ash of the burnt dead bodies. Which means what? The destruction of the Dehatma Buddhi. When the body and the identification is gone and it is burnt and the samsara is burnt into ash, that is the ornament of the Lord. Means what? That is an ornament for the one who is free from all this. So the jnana is an ornament of the Lord who is eternally auspicious, Shivam. So when the individual understands, so when the individual is destroyed, the ash which is jnana, The only thing that is remaining from the individual is jnana. When you understand I am what I am, the ornament for me is jnana. So the jnana becomes an ornament for the self. Like how the ash is an ornament for the Lord. Okay. Now, Dahati, it converts it into ash and burns the whole thing. Vibheda janake jnane nashama yenitakam gate atmani brahmano abhedam asantam kaha karishyati. When the ajnana, which is the cause of the sense of difference, is totally destroyed, who will make the non-existent distinction of the Brahman from the Atman? To this great person who attains the Advaita Bhava, the sense of differenceless Brahman who is unceasingly realizes it, what will remain of the seed of samsara, of the delusion of Atman in the body? Not in the least. So it is qualifying. The Vimukti means from that results liberation. There is no coming back. They are qualifying by this statement. When the knowledge of the oneness of the individual and the Supreme is realized, what can remain in this front of this fire of this knowledge? So samsara is totally destroyed. So just a stotram, it is a appreciation of this concept. Then the next one. Avaranasya nivrittir bhavati cha samyak padartha darshanatah mithya jnana vinashah tadvad vikshepa janita dukkha nivrittihi. By the proper understanding of an object arises the cancellation of the concealment. Avaranasya nivrittir bhavati cha samyak padartha darshanat. Usually, the ignorance about an object by the vision of the real knowledge of an object, the ignorance about the object is cleared. Similarly, in the same way, the removal of the grief produced by wrong projection. Suppose there is a dark, there is a one-way path in a forest. I'm walking, and there is something there, and something moves, some rat or something runs that way, and then I walk there and I step on something that is cold, wet, and like a rope, long, slimy. And I remember, it could be a snake. Now I don't know whether it is a snake or not. I have a projection that it is a snake. Then I create all kinds of imagination, what anti-venom to use, how far is the hospital, all my whole Google Maps rushes into my mind around this area. And then I shine my torch on that. I don't want to take my leg because I saw in National Geographic, the moment you move, the rattlesnake hits you. So probably I am standing on this fellow's head. If I remove my, till now it has not bitten me. And I shine the torch on that. And you see, it's only a rope. The moment I know it is a rope, the entire projection based on wrong knowledge is gone. It is a very classical example in Vedanta. Everywhere you see Rajju, Sarpa, Jnana, no? The logic of the rope and the serpent. It is a very famous logical tool which is used for illustrating this. So it is gone. The moment I know the nature of that thing as what it is. Once I know what it is, all the projections based on the wrong knowledge is gone. Just like the woman who apparently lost her Armani sunglasses. And she just put it on the head and forgot in the beach, searching everywhere. The moment she found the Armani sunglass, all her projection about her husband shouting at her or whatever, and then how I will buy another Armani sunglass, I lost my favorite sunglass, now it is out of model, I was the only one having this designer sunglass. All this worry is gone the moment she finds it. So all the projections are gone. In the same way, the moment the wrong projection is gone, because the source of the wrong projection, which is ignorance, is gone, the sorrow is also gone. The grief here, mithya jnana vinashaha tadvad vikshepa janita dukkha nivrittihi. The sorrow or the pain or the suffering that is the result of the projecting power which is based on the awareness. Because the wrong knowledge is gone, the wrong projections that are based on the wrong knowledge, they are creating a lot of sorrow. So all this sorrow that is born of nothing but the wrong projection are also gone because the source of them is gone. So when all the dukkha is gone, that means there is no more samsara. So you are in Ananda. You realize the true nature of yourself as Ananda. Ananda Ganaha, we saw, no? Few verses before we saw, the person is rooted in the nature of oneself as a body of bliss. Ananda Ganaha. Ananda Ganaha means I am Sukha Swarupaha. I am free from all kinds of blemish. I am free from all kinds of sense of limitation. Free from all kinds of sorrow. There is not even an iota of misery in this person. It's not possible. Now, there is an illustration. The next verse gives you an illustration to explain this. Etat tritayam drishtam samyak rajyuswarupa vijnanat tasmat vastu satatvam jnatavyam bandhamuktaye vidusha. These three are seen by the proper knowledge of the rope snake. You see, rope snake came. Therefore, the truth about a thing must be known by the wise man for relief from bondage. Etat triviyam means the removal of the concealment of the rope, the destruction of the delusion of the snake, and the removal of the grief ensuing on the fear and the trembling caused by the projection of the snake on the rope. These three are seen. Tasmat Musha, therefore, by him who knows this, for the destruction of the concealment and the projection, the cause of bondage, the object of its true nature should be understood. The person who is keen on knowing must understand the true nature of the object to remove this. The three, what is the three? The wrong knowledge and the absence of knowledge, the wrong knowledge and the projections based on the wrong knowledge and the sorrow created by the projections. These are the three. The wrong knowledge, projections based on the wrong knowledge and the sorrow that is the result of the projections. These three are to be destroyed. These three are to be seen, you know. These three are seen means that the real nature of them is seen. The real nature of these three. Samsara, which is nothing but your own projection. And the sorrow from samsara is the result of this projection. So the sorrow of the samsara, which is based on your projection, which is based on the absence of knowledge of yourself, that is the wrong knowledge of yourself. These three in its nature is seen as it is by the wise person from release from bondage. Why the wise person cannot say, okay, just say, okay, I am Brahman. Why they are asking you to see? Why they are asking you to see the nature of, the real nature of these three? Because experientially, what is the topic under discussion here? The topic under discussion here is how to become free from the habit patterns. How to be established in the steadiness of mind. We are talking about commitment to the knowledge. So when it comes to commitment to the knowledge, it is important to see the interconnectedness of these three. Whenever I experience sorrow, be sure there is a projection. Without a projection based on wrong knowledge, there cannot be an experience of sorrow. Nail it down in your head. If you are experiencing sorrow, if there is sorrow experienced, behind the sorrow, no matter how legitimate is your sorrow, no matter how approved and normal is your sorrow, if you experience sorrow, behind the sorrow is a projection based on ignorance. Sorrow is based on projection, projection is based on ignorance. These three are there. So these three are to be seen as the result of ignorance. So the person should revert back to vichara. So the wise person sees the connection between these three. So the moment I see this, what happens? the sense of reality in my sorrow is gone. The mind is available to investigate the false nature of the phenomena and revert back to the knowledge of reality. This is the point. So this is how you bring your mind back to steadiness. Wherever the mind is unsteady, wherever sorrow here means enjoyment also. Whenever the mind is stuck in a very pleasing manner, whenever the mind is stuck in a very displeasing manner, in both these situations, behind this attachment or aversion is a projection. Behind the projection is avidya. So trace it back to the avidya and get your commitment back to the knowledge. Investigate the avidya and become free from it in the light of the teaching. Thus the mind comes back to the steadiness of the knowledge of the self. Doing this repeatedly, the mind is able to abide in Nirvikalpa. The knowledge that I am Nirvikalpa makes the mind come back to the state of Nirvikalpa. There are two things. The knowledge that I am Nirvikalpa. That is all the subject, object, the process of experiencing, all this is me only. There is no three phenomena here. This is the knowledge. I don't define myself as the subject of an experience. I resolve the subject, the object, and the process of experiencing of every experience. I resolve these three into the knowledge of I as that absolute, the Satya Atma, into the true knowledge of myself, in the knowledge of myself as the true thing. When I do this, as a result, the mind lets go of all its projections and comes back to the state of undivided pure awareness that reflects only my nature. Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Nirvikalpa Samadhi is a result of jnana. I don't chase Nirvikalpa Samadhi. I hold on to the knowledge. Nirvikalpa Samadhi is the result. Okay? So how one should do this? Every time I experience an attachment or an aversion, and because of that I am either worked up positively or I am worked up negatively, I trace it back, I see, okay, this is false. First, delegitimize it. It is not legitimate. It is not real. Behind this is projection. And behind the projection is ignorance. See the nature of this and immediately your self-knowledge will start kicking in. And be committed to investigating the falseness of this and revert back to the teaching. So then you are first safe. Having secured yourself, the mind can do what is necessary for the situation. Having secured your freedom, let the body do what is required for the situation. Let the body and mind do what is required. In the platform that you are not the doer. There is a way to come back to the steadiness in the knowledge of the self. So with this we will conclude today. The next one is 350, we will go from that next week. The mithya character of everything other than the self is stated with the supporting reason and all that. Like the coming together of the iron and fire, the intellect manifest. This is another topic. We will go in the next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tatsat. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Sarve janaha sukhino bhavantu. Om Asato ma sadgamaya. Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya. Mrityorma